This is Marvel Rivals. Heard of it? Probably. It's kind of the hottest hero shooter on the market right now. And for good reason, too. This game is a fascinating mix-up of the genre. Between the dynamic and fun heroes and villains that everyone knows and loves, to the amazingly implemented team-up mechanic, this game has it all. I'm here to get you started on your journey to be a hero. So let's get started with the basics. That is what I'm here for, after all. And we've got a lot to cover here. So suit up, and welcome to Rivals Kindergarten. This week we're going to be doing the Brawl comp, my personal favorite. It's been my absolute preferred way to play in any of these types of objective-based hero shooters. Favorite heroes in Overwatch? Zarya, Junker Queen, Symmetra, Mei, Brigitte, and Lucio. Favorite champs and paladins? Ashe, Nyx, Furia, Rey, Seris. Favorite heroes in Marvel Rivals? Brawling Magneto, Thing, Magic, Storm, Cloak and Dagger, Mantis. I just like brawling. It's my favorite way to play these games. I don't know what it is about it, I just love it. But what is Brawl exactly? Well, Brawl or Rush heroes typically have a lot of survivability and excel in close range. Now, a lot of the heroes in this game are melee based, so that's not always the case. But close range can also mean someone with a shotgun or a short range beam attack. Basically anyone that gets value from getting up close and personal. They're weak to poke comps due to their increased range being able to hold them at a distance, but they're very strong against dive comps because of their ability to beat the shit out of the diver. As well as their crowd control, because a lot of the Brawl heroes have pretty good crowd control. So without further ado, let's get down to business. I will be starting with the Vanguards, then moving to Duelists, and finally wrapping it up with Strategists. If any of you have seen my previous Kindergartens, then you'll know the drill here. I'm going to go over each character and talk about their abilities in a slight in-depth manner, then give some tips that I have either learned the hard way or developed on my own. Don't take my advice as fact, please. Everyone has their own playstyle, and as I've said before and will continue to say again, what works for me might not work for you. Take what I say as a jumping off point and figure out your own thing from there. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Oh, and my normal disclaimer. This is all accurate information as of Season 1.5. So let's do this. Up first is Groot, and this will be the case with all of the tanks I'm covering in this episode, but he is incredibly brawly. He thrives in close spaces, tight corridors, and by blocking off sight lines. That's why I put him in Brawl. He has a base HP of 700, and his primary fire is called Vine Strike. He extends his arms and damages enemies up to 20 meters away. Each strike does 70 damage. He has an ammo capacity of 8. His alternate fire is called Spore Bomb, which is an explosive that deals 55 splash damage and then bursts into 6 smaller bombs that deal 10 damage each. The main bomb covers a 5 meter spherical radius, while the clusters cover a 1.5 meter spherical radius. It has a cooldown of 6 seconds. His two primary abilities are tied to one of his passive abilities, so I'll cover that first. His passive is called Flora Colossus, which awakens all wooden walls within a 20 meter radius of Groot. His first ability is called Thorn Lash Wall, which is a small wall with 250 HP. Any enemy nearby while the wall is awoken will cause the wall to lash out with vines that deal 60 damage. It has 2 charges with a cooldown of 6 seconds per charge. His second ability is called Ironwood Wall, which is a larger wall that has 700 HP. If awoken and Groot hits an enemy, every second per hit, Groot gains 40 bonus health to a max of 250, meaning that if Groot is in the range of the wall and damages an enemy, he gains 40 over health, but that effect has a 1 second cooldown, basically. This ability has a cooldown of 8 seconds. His second passive is a melee combo that launches enemies up on the third hit, called Furious Flora. His ultimate ability is called Strangling Prison. He fires a massive vine cluster that pulls enemies towards the center and imprisons them for 3.5 seconds, which means they can't move or use movement abilities unless it's an ultimate for the duration. It covers an 8 meter spherical radius, and the initial impact does 10 damage with a 70 splash damage in the radius, While an enemy is imprisoned, they take 20 damage every 0.5 seconds. It costs 2,800 energy. Like I said, Groot is best played in tight areas and chokes. He is also very well at halting pushes and blocking the sightlines. On top of that, his ult has amazing combo potential with some high DPS ults or abilities. He's amazing at cutting off people from their supports or from the rest of their team. He's just overall a very flexible and amazing brawl hero. Next up on the chopping block is the Hulk, or Bruce Banner. I don't think it needs to be said why the Hulk is in Brawl, Hulk Smash and all that, but it's not actually for the reason you'd think, mainly. It's because not only is he an incredible brawler, but he also functions very well with his team, which is where a lot of Brawl heroes really excel during their team play. Brawl heroes aren't really solo fraggers, they're group fighters. Hulk is also a bit unusual in the fact that he's got 3 forms. The third is his ultimate, so we'll get into that later. But first I'm going to start with Bruce's form. Not that you'll be using it too much, but I'd rather cover it than not. Bruce has a base HP of 200, and his primary fire is the Gamma Ray Gun, a medium speed projectile that does 16 damage per hit. It has an ammo capacity of 25. His only ability is the Gamma Grenade, which is a grenade that he throws down that deals 40 splash damage in a 3-meter spherical radius. On top of that, it also launches him up slightly, as well as giving 50 Gamma Energy, which is important for the next part, and important for his whole kit. Gamma Energy is what charges his ult. It's basically free ult charge. His ult, Puny Banner, which turns him into the Hulk. It functions a bit like D.Va in Overwatch, where if he dies as the Hulk, he turns into Bruce, then you gotta kill Bruce to kill him. But if you don't kill Bruce to kill him, he turns back into the Hulk. Puny Banner costs 600 energy. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes of his kit, the Hulk. He has a base HP of 650, and his primary fire is called Heavy Blow, which is him punching, and it does 40 damage per hit. His ult fire is called Gamma Burst, which is a ray of pure concentrated gamma energy that deals 70 damage and pierces enemies. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. His next ability is called Radioactive Lockdown, a blast that deals 5 damage and exiles enemies for 2 seconds, which is basically a stun. If they're damaged by either Heavy Blow or Gamma Burst, the effect ends prematurely and he gains a bit of gamma energy. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Up next is Indestructible Guard, and anyone within range of the Hulk, which is a 5-meter spherical radius, gains a 100 HP bubble for 2.5 seconds. On top of that, Hulk also gains a 250 HP bubble for the duration as well. When Hulk's shield takes damage, 100% of the damage received is turned into gamma energy, and if an ally's shield is damaged, only 10% of the damage is converted. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Before his ult, let's talk about his passive, Incredible Leap, which is a huge jump that allows him to jump really far away. If he jumps into a wall, holding the jump button will allow him to cling to it. His ultimate, though, is called Hulk Smash, which transforms him into what the game refers to as Monster Hulk for 12 seconds. During the duration, he gets the following benefits. His damage increases to 70, and his attack speed is increased for his primary fire. Radioactive Lockdown travels faster and has a faster cooldown. Gamma Burst does 125 damage and travels faster, as well as getting a faster cooldown. On top of all of that, he gains HP up to 1,400 and fully heals and refreshes his cooldowns. Additionally, yes, there is more, when you ult, you get access to World Breaker, which means when you are near an enemy, you can use this pseudo ultimate to deliver 5 hits, each dealing 40 damage by slamming them around. It lasts for 5 seconds, and while slamming them, Hulk gains 30% damage resistance. Hulk Smash costs 3,400 energy. Do you see why he's in Brawl? He absolutely destroys his way through the enemy team, and does pretty solid damage, as well as having solid team play. Textbook Brawl hero to me. My advice is to stick close to your team in most circumstances. I know as the Hulk you're going to want to jump in as much and fuck shit up as much as possible, but I promise you sticking by your team is much better. Not that you're not allowed to go in and, wreak havoc on them, but as the Hulk you're going to want to stick closer to your team than diving. Alright, okay, so here's the thing. Thank you. I'll be here all week, don't worry. I know Marvel Rivals players and people who consume the content aren't sick of that joke. It's definitely not overused. Anyway, the thing is another hero where I feel like it's not exactly necessary to explain why he belongs in Brawl. He's a former boxer and literally made of weird space rocks. If that doesn't spell out Brawl hero to you, I don't know what to tell you. He has a base HP of 700 and his primary fire is called Rocky Jab. He swings his fists for 2 jabs in quick succession, each doing 40 damage. His alt fire is called Stone Haymaker, and it's a huge punch that has a brief charge up time. It does 90 damage in a massive 8-meter cone in front of him. As he punches, he moves forward 3 meters and gains 50 bonus health. It has no cooldown. His primary movement ability is called the Yancey Street Charge. He stampedes forward, becoming CC immune and gaining 100% movement speed boost for the 5-second duration. Additionally, upon activation, he gains 200 bonus health. Any person he runs into takes 30 damage, and at the end of the run, he slams down, making a large crater that deals 20 damage and grants the Earthbound condition, which, as we know from Namor's ult, which we've already talked about, disables movement abilities. It has a cooldown of 10 seconds. His main source of damage reduction is called Embattled Leap, which has a 20-meter range. And basically, he just fucking jumps at an ally within range and grants both himself and the target 30% damage reduction for the next 3 seconds. He has 2 charges, each has a 3-second cooldown. Next up is his passive ability, Unyielding Will. It makes him completely immune to launch up, knockback, or displacement CC. Anything that would basically move him without his consent, he can just say no to. As for his ultimate, Clobberin' Time, it is a massive stun in a 3-meter high, 10-meter wide, and 18-meter long area of effect. It advances 2 meters down the line every 0.1 second, until it reaches the max of 18, and it also goes through barriers and walls. Anyone hit by it becomes knocked up briefly, stunned for 2.5 seconds, and takes 100 damage. It costs 2,800 energy. The Thing is one of the strongest tanks in the game right now, and rightfully so. In the proper hands, he can be a genuine menace. Some advice I have for you is to just play aggressive. Play within your leap range so you can get out or get in. If you're going in, make sure you have either a leap or your charge up and off cooldown in order to get out. And lastly, don't be afraid to use your alt fire, as it is an amazing combo potential with your primary fire. Oh, and the charge is controlled with your movement inputs, not by your camera. That's kind of important to note because it does feel a little clunky at first if you don't know that. But you know that, so there we go. The last hero in the Vanguard category is Thor, the God of Thunder. Now, Thor is another hero I'm not really that great at. I mean, I can play him, but I'd rather play any of the other Brawl tanks or even Mag or Strange. But I do understand a lot of his fundamentals, unlike with Black Panther. Now, let's start off with his base HP, which is 525. His primary fire is called Mjolnir Bash, which is when he swings his hammer and deals 45 damage per impact. Actually, before I move on to his abilities, let's talk about his passive real quick. Thor Force. It's his primary mechanic, and it's a resource that Thor must manage. He has 3 charges of it. Each charge has a 5-second cooldown, and 3 out of 4 of his abilities cost Thor Force, not counting his ult. Each point of Thor Force consumed grants 100 bonus health, while abilities that consume 3 points of Thor Force grant 200 bonus health. If you hit an enemy with your primary fire, you recover Thor Force faster. Lastly, any use of Thor Force causes all of your abilities down to a 1.5 second cooldown, with the exception of that one that doesn't rely on Thor Force. Holy shit, that sounds like a fake word now. His alt fire is called Hammer Throw, and it's pretty self-explanatory what it does. He throws Mjolnir forward upwards of 24 meters, and if it impacts an enemy, it deals 70 damage, and then returns, dealing 30 damage when returning. It returns faster than it travels when thrown. It costs 1 Thor Force. Next is his primary movement ability, Storm Surge, which is a dash. He can charge up to 2 seconds that sends him flying in the direction of the input up to 20 meters, with a minimum of 10. If he hits an enemy, he does up to 60 damage but loses distance, only traveling up to 13 meters. It costs 1 Thor Force. After that is his primary DPS ability, Awakening Rune. Upon cast, it augments his primary fire and changes it to lightning bolts that he throws up. Each bolt does 70 damage and 15 splash damage in a 13 meter spherical radius. It lasts for 5 seconds, and upon cast, he gains 200 bonus health for 2.5 seconds. It costs 3 Thor Force. His last ability is called Lightning Realm. He casts a 5 meter spherical radius bubble that does an initial 40 damage upon cast, or to anyone who enters the bubble. If an enemy is in the area, 1 point of Thor Force is restored. Additionally, they are slowed by 30%. It lasts for 4 seconds, and is the only ability to have an unlinked cooldown, which is a 12-second cooldown. His ultimate ability is called God of Thunder, and he flies into the air and does 40 damage every 0.5 seconds for 1.5 seconds, and then he slams down, dealing 220 damage. The radius is cylindrical and has an 8 meter radius and is 20 meters high. While in this ability, he's immune to stuns and CC. It costs 3,100 energy. Thor is a very aggressive Brawl Dive hybrid. He functions very well in either comp. One thing to note though, is that he isn't a solo tank. He has no actual damage mitigation for his team, only for himself. Some advice for him: always manage your Thor Force properly. It's his most important value, and a lot of his uptime is decided by if he has his Thor Force or not. Another thing, do not get too aggressive though, because even though he is an aggressive hero, because without proper support or backup, he will just kind of fold. He has very little actual self-sustain. So Magik is our first duelist, and yes, she is technically a diver. I know. I put her in Brawl for a reason though, and it's because primarily she is a Brawl hero, even if her role differs slightly from a traditional hero that you would find in this comp. That means that for the purposes of clarification and classification, she is a Brawl Dive hybrid, and she won't be the last in the duelist roster to be categorized this way. Her HP is 250, and her primary fire is called Soul Sword, a slow swinging sword, say that 10 times fast, that deals 65 damage per strike. It has a far reach for a melee weapon, being 6.5 meters. Her secondary fire is called Magic Slash, which is a charged projectile that has a max charge time of 2 seconds. It does 45 minimum damage and 90 with max charge. It has a cooldown of 6 seconds. Her primary movement ability is called Stepping Discs, and this ability does quite a lot, honestly. Upon cast, she goes through a magic portal, gaining a brief period of invincibility, and travels up to 10 meters. After exiting the portal, she has a 3-second window to cast a secondary linked ability. Her primary fire changes to Eldritch Whirl, where she spins around and deals 45 damage in a 6-meter radius. Her alternate fire changes to Demon's Rage, where she places down a small demon with 100 HP. It lasts for 4 seconds, and during that duration it constantly attacks, dealing 18 damage per hit for a total of 288 damage. Stepping Discs has 2 charges, and each has a cooldown of 6 seconds. Then there's Umbral Incursion. She rapidly dashes forward up to 16 meters. If she makes contact with an enemy, she uppercuts them into the air and follows them up, dealing 85 damage. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Before tackling her ultimate, let's talk about her passive, Limbo's Might. Basically, 30% of any damage she deals is converted into bonus health, with a maximum of 150. Lastly is her ultimate, Dark Child. Upon cast, she transforms into a demonic form for 12 seconds, and immediately regains all expended cooldowns. For the duration, all of her abilities are enhanced. Let me just go over them really quick. The range of Soul Sword increases to 10 meters and deals more damage, 35 at base, with 2 more 35 damage detonations on the target after a 0.15 second delay each. Magic Slash travels much faster, deals 90 to 180 damage, min to max, and has a 3-second cooldown. Stepping Discs is much faster and has a 3-second cooldown. But that's not all. Eldritch Whirl range increases to a 12-meter radius and deals 35 damage 3 times, much like her primary fire, in intervals of 0.15 seconds. And Demon's Rage increases to 25 for a max of 400 damage. Lastly, Umbral Incursion travels 20 meters and deals 135 damage, and has a reduced 6-second cooldown. This ability costs 3,400 energy. Magic is probably one of the most complex heroes in the entire game to learn and get the hang of. Some advice I have for her is to try to get as many combos as possible with her primary fire and cooldowns, because her sword is incredibly slow compared to other melee heroes. Don't spam cooldowns unnecessarily though, because that would just be wasting resources. Additionally, especially at first where you won't know the proper timing of the two abilities, prioritize Demon's Rage over Eldritch Whirl. With the higher DPS and zoning potential, it will be much more valuable. Up next is what I would classify as the archetypal brawl hero, in like any of the roles. Also one of the biggest misclassifications of any hero in the roster. He should have been a tank hero, not a DPS. Also, I kind of wish he was a strategist, like really anything but a duelist, like straight up. There are fucking 30 of them, we don't need more. We didn't need 2 more this season, we don't need more. But hey, that's just my opinion, the game's the game, you know? He has a base HP of 350, and his primary fire is called Stretch Punch, a 15-meter range melee attack that does 60, fuck it, I'm leaving it in, I don't care. 60 damage to anyone it hits. Additionally, it has Cleave, which means if he swings with his arms while attacking, it can hit multiple enemies at once. Real quick before I move on to more stuff, let's talk about his passive. Much like Thor, it's his primary mechanic. It's called Elastic Strength. Dealing damage grants elasticity. Same with using abilities. It has a max of 100, and when he reaches max elasticity, he enters the inflated form, which increases his size, grants him 450 bonus health, a 20% movement speed boost, and increases his damage to 75, but lowers his attack range to 8 meters. This form lasts for 6 seconds, and then he deflates. His secondary fire is called Distended Grip, and it's a very interesting ability. He targets an enemy within 20 meters and wraps his arm around them, dealing an initial 20 damage. He can then grab with his other arm, dealing 20 more damage. Then cracking his arms like a whip, he pulls the enemy 10 meters towards him and deals 50 more damage. Alternatively, if you have one person in your grasp, you can instead grab a second enemy and slam them together, dealing 30 damage to each, instead of the 50 damage. This ability causes you to gain 30 elasticity and has a cooldown of 6 seconds. Up next is his damage mitigation ability, Reflexive Rubber. For 3 seconds, he expands his body like, "Is this guy bothering you, queen?" and then gains 300 HP and a 35% slow. During that time, any damage you receive is instead taken from the 300 HP shield first. After the duration is up or the shield is depleted, Mr. Fantastic launches all the damage back at a target and deals 60% of the damage taken. This ability has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Next is Flexible Elongation, which is as close to a movement ability as he's going to get. He can target both allies and enemies with this ability, as long as they are within 15 meters of him. No matter who he jumps to, he receives 75 bonus health and gains 30 elasticity. If he targets an ally, they also gain 75 bonus health. Although if he targets an enemy, he deals 35 damage. This ability has 2 charges and a cooldown of 10 seconds per charge. His ultimate ability is called Brainiac Bounce, and it works about how it sounds it would, honestly. He expands his body and leaps into the air, slamming down and dealing 70 damage per leap in a 10-meter spherical radius. After 3 leaps, he must hit an enemy to continue leaping. He can only leap 6 times before the ability ends. Additionally, any enemy hit by the leap is slowed by 10% for 3 seconds. This can stack if they're hit multiple times. This ability costs 3,400 energy. There he is, Mr. Fantastic. He's probably one of the weaker DPS when paired with non-brawl characters, but unsurprisingly, if you pair him with the Thing or the Hulk, he can become an absolute menace to society. My advice for him is to actually, learn how to effectively manage your elasticity. Also, do not be afraid to play aggressively if you have the team comp to allow for it. He can be absolutely devastating in the right scenario, but otherwise is normally just kind of a nuisance. Finally, the last bit of advice I have for him is to not overcommit with his inflated form. Do not be afraid to dismiss it. It makes him a bigger target and therefore more likely to be burst down by high damage abilities. I lied, one more thing. He's not a tank. Alright, he isn't. He can serve as an off-tank very effectively, but his kit is not designed to make him be the sole focus and create the amount of space that a normal tank would. He is still just a DPS. He is not a substitute for a tank. So completely off script here. I think this is so funny. It's 5 a.m. I'm recording this at 5 a.m. So it's gonna be really goofy. There's a lot of shit going wrong with this cut, but I don't care. I don't want to record the audio again. But anyway, off script. I'm an idiot. I wrote the script and I put Squirrel Girl after Storm, even though T comes after Q. Make it make sense. Anyway, she is another hero that might be considered contentious. Why isn't she in Poke? She just sits in the backlines, spamming acorns all game. Because frankly, that's not how you're supposed to be playing her. Like, yes, she does work from a distance through spam, but you can get good value that way. But she's intentionally designed to be playing in the middle of her team. In between her crowd control and high burst damage, she does have excellent high ground control as well, which makes her a good counter to Poke. But overall, I'd say just her playstyle facilitates a brawly playstyle. Her design facilitates a brawly playstyle. See, I'm already fucking up, and I just don't care. I can't be fucked. You guys aren't always going to see professional kindergarten shit. Okay. I don't care. She has a base HP of 275, and her primary fire is called Burst Acorn, which is a slingshot that launches acorns that explode upon impact. It has a 3-meter spherical radius area of effect, and deals 110 damage. She has an ammo capacity of 10. Her alternate fire, Squirrel Blockade, or "Hey, check out this big acorn," is a big acorn. It has a 1.5 second charge up time, and the longer it's charged, the faster it travels. Upon impact with an enemy, it deals 35 damage and imprisons them for 1.33 seconds. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Her movement ability is called Tail Bounce, and it's pretty obvious what it does. She just uses her tail to jump, specifically 9 meters into the air. It has an 8-second cooldown. Then there's Mammal Bond, which is actually really cool. Upon cast, she reloads her primary fire and gains 1 free use of one of her other abilities for 5 seconds. This is really useful when you need to stun 2 people, when you waste a stun by missing it, when you need to escape a sticky situation and already used your jump. There's a lot of utility for it. This ability has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Her ultimate ability is called Unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami. Upon cast, a massive horde of squirrels begin to stampede across the battlefield. The horde has 300 HP and lasts for 10 seconds. Each time the horde hits an enemy, it will deal 150 damage. If it bounces off a wall, it will seek out the nearest enemy. It costs 2,800 energy. Squirrel Girl is one of the most misused and misunderstood heroes in the roster, much like her predecessor Junkrat. Spam is a valuable part of her kit, I will not lie, but she has a more value in tight spaces and in big groups of enemies, especially when playing with her team. Her stun is also incredibly useful as an anti-dive tool, though it is valuable to know that the hitbox is incredibly janky. Sometimes it bounces through an enemy and doesn't hit them, but sometimes you can throw it right past them and it still just stuns them for some reason. After that, and now in the proper alphabetical order, you fucking moron. We're going to be talking about Storm, which is probably going to seem like a strange choice for those of you that play the game, or who consume the content. Why is the flying hero placed in Brawl? Wouldn't she be more effective in the poke comp? And I will concede that yes, she is very good at poke and has a lot of poke tools. Just kind of like how Magic is very good at dive and has a lot of diving tools. She belongs in Brawl due to her passive aura and the fact that she basically shouldn't have been a flyer. At least not a permanent one like Iron Man or Human Torch. That would make her a Brawl poke hybrid though, I think. She has a base HP of 250, and her primary fire is called Windblade, which is a fairly fast-moving projectile that pierces enemies. Each shot deals 55 damage, and she has an ammo capacity of 12. Her secondary fire is called Bolt Rush, and she simply shoots a bolt of lightning that deals 80 damage. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Next up is her passive aura, but it's not really a passive ability, it is tied to an active ability. If you played Overwatch, it works very similar to Lucio. It's called Weather Control. In a 15-meter spherical radius, there is an effect that surrounds Storm constantly. Allies only gain the effects if they stand within the radius that Storm's aura covers. The primary one is Tornado. It's the one that she starts the game with, so there's that, which grants her a 16% speed boost, and her allies gain an 8% one. Then there's Thunder, which grants her a 12% damage boost, while her allies only receive 10%. This ability has no cooldown and you can swap between them freely. Lastly, before we get to her ultimate, there's Goddess Boost, which vastly boosts the effectiveness of Tornado and Thunder for 8 seconds. Enhanced Tornado grants a 40% speed boost to Storm and a 20% speed boost to the rest of her allies. Additionally, if any enemies are in the radius, they are slowed by 15%. Enhanced Thunder increases the damage boost to 25% for Storm and 12% for her allies. Additionally, every 2 seconds while Thunder is in the active slot and Goddess Boost is active, a strike of lightning targets all enemies in the area of effect, dealing 35 damage. Also, if Thunder is active when you activate the boost, there's an initial 35 damage to all enemies within the radius. This ability has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Her ultimate, Omega Hurricane, transforms her into a massive tornado for the entire duration. It has a 5-second activation period where Storm must select where she goes. Then the tornado stage lasts an additional 5 seconds. Upon cast, she instantly gains 450 bonus health. The tornado has an 8-meter spherical radius and deals up to 750 damage during the duration. It also completely destroys breakable terrain. It costs 3,100 energy. Now, you still might be confused as to why she's in Brawl, and it's really quite simple. She needs to play with her team in order to give them the benefits of her weather control. Play relatively low to the ground, and try to support your team as much as possible. She may not be the most aggressive or in-your-face Brawl hero, but she still has her value in the comp, especially considering the value of her aura. Something to note, she's straight up one of the best DPSs in the game, and it's for a variety of reasons, but she lives in a fragile state. If she's nerfed even a little bit more than she already has been, then she becomes borderline unplayable. Like, obviously she isn't actually unplayable, but she isn't going to be as good if she gets nerfed next season, which she might be based on the fact that she has kind of one of the highest ban rates in any rank. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. Bucky is next on the Brawl list, and I hope this entry is not controversial. At least it feels pretty obvious to me why he's here. He's very much a textbook Brawl hero, with his ability to pull enemies out of position and with his high burst damage making him a menace to play against. And especially so for tanks. He has a base HP of 275, and his primary fire is called the Rotor Stern, which is a revolver that shoots explosive rounds. The initial projectile deals 75 damage and 65 splash damage to enemies behind the target in a 5-meter, 90-degree cone. This projectile has the unique effect of not damaging the main target with the splash damage, unlike other things like it. He has an ammo capacity of 3. And you're right, that doesn't seem like a lot, but here's why. His passive is called Ceaseless Charge. Upon cast of any of his abilities, literally any of them, Rotor Stern reloads completely. Additionally, he gains bonus health for the ability cast. Bionic Hook and Tainted Voltage grant 40, whereas Kraken, Impact, and Trooper's Fist grant 50. This is his primary gameplay loot. shoot, shoot, ability, shoot, shoot, ability, so on and so forth. His alternate fire is called Bionic Hook, which is a hook mechanic. It has a max charge time of 4 seconds and travels up to 20 meters. Upon impact with an enemy, it deals 15 damage and pulls the enemy towards Bucky. Additionally, any enemies behind the target in a 4.5 meter 80 degree cone are also damaged and pulled. It has an 8-second cooldown. His primary movement ability is called Trooper's Fist, and he dashes 9 meters forward and punches an enemy, dealing 25 damage. After that, he uppercuts them, dealing 65 damage. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Next is Tainted Voltage, a projectile that he launches at enemies. If it hits them, it deals 55 damage and slows them by 35% for 2 seconds. It pierces enemies and even knocks flying heroes out of the air. It has a cooldown of 6 seconds. Last but certainly not least, and I mean that 100% seriously, this is his ultimate ability, Kraken Impact, or AGAIN! Bucky jumps high into the air and slams down, dealing 100 damage in a 5 meter spherical radius. Additionally, for the next 5 seconds, every enemy the ability hit is marked for culling, and will instantly die if their health reaches or drops below 20%. Upon death, the enemy's death, not his, Bucky regains the ultimate for the next 8 seconds. He can do this infinitely. If an enemy would instantly die if hit with Kraken Impact, Bucky still regains the ability to use it. Also, Bucky does not have to be the one to kill them. As long as they drop to that threshold, it resets. It costs 3,100 energy. Bucky is best played with his tank or tanks, pulling and displacing enemies. With his high burst damage, he is also very effective at punishing enemies. Add on top of that how disgustingly broken Kraken Impact is, and you've got the recipe for one of the most oppressive heroes on the entire roster. One thing to note, though, is that he's not exactly the most simple hero to learn. His low ammo count means he has a reliance on his cooldowns in order to be more effective, which can be difficult for beginners. The last duelist in the entire game is Wolverine, and he truly exemplifies the phrase of, "I'm the best at what I do. And what I do isn't very nice." He's the best tank buster in the game, and that's no exaggeration. The ability to pull a tank out of position and do insane damage to them cannot be understated. He also is another Brawl Dive hybrid, like I mentioned earlier. See? Not the last duelist. Hell, not even the last X-Man. He has a base HP of 350, and a base movement speed of 7 meters per second, which is faster than the base of 6 meters per second. His primary fire is called Savage Claw. He slashes with his adamantium claws and deals 15 base damage, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it also does percentage base damage equal to 1.5% of the target's maximum health, with an extra 0.05% damage for every point of rage, which means the more HP an enemy has, the more damage he's doing. His alternate fire is a short-range dash called the Vicious Rampage. It brings him forward 7.5 meters. Upon impact with an enemy, he slashes them and deals 15 damage plus all the extra percentages from his primary fire. The cooldown is 3 seconds. His main movement ability is called Feral Leap, which is him basically lunging for an enemy and grabbing them, pulling them out of position. It does 35 impact damage and then 35 damage as he smashes them into the ground. The knockdown lasts for 0.75 seconds. After landing, for the next 4 seconds, he enters the Berserk Claw state, which rapidly increases his attack speed and damage output for the duration. He has a cooldown of 12 seconds for that ability. His next ability is called Undying Animal, and it serves as his main damage mitigation ability. It lasts for 5 seconds, and during the duration you reduce 40% of all damage taken. It has a cooldown of 16 seconds, rather. Next up are his 2 passives. First is Berserker Rage. Rage maxes out at 100, and you gain different values of rage depending on the circumstance. You gain some for doing damage, some for taking damage, some for using an ability. It's a lot of numbers that I really don't want to say them all, so I'm just not going to. His second passive is Regenerative Healing Factor, which does not function how you think it would. If you would be killed, you instead gain bonus health based on your rage meter, up to 300 bonus health. This state lasts for 3 seconds, and any bonus health left over After the duration turns into a one-off heal completely consumes your rage. This ability has a 90-second cooldown, but if you get a kill, you reduce the cooldown by 10 seconds. At last, we get to his ultimate ability, Last Stand. All enemies in an 8-meter spherical radius around Wolverine get sent up into the air as he leaps up with them. Each enemy knocked up takes 50 damage. He then spirals into the ground, dealing 50 impact damage, plus more damage equal to 10% of the target's max health and an extra 0.3% per rage point in an 8-meter radius. As enemies are slammed into the ground, they are knocked down for 1 second, and he enters Berserk Claw. It costs 3,100 energy. My best advice that I can give for Wolverine is simply target the tanks. Also, the hitbox on his leap is janky as well, so there's that to look out for. Lastly, if your healing factor passive procs, start playing a little slower and more cautious, as you'll be more likely to get burst down. Play him like a bizarre off-tank who pulls the enemy tank out of position in order to free space. But again, much like Mr. Fantastic, Loken is not a tank. He will get burst down in the wrong scenario. Finally, we've made it to the strategists, and here they are, my main. I've been waiting to cover them for a while actually, and this section might be a little long as I've learned quite a lot about them through my time playing the game, and also due to their complex seeming kit and hybrid play style between support and DPS. Because they switched between two forms, Dagger primarily and then Cloak, just basically for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be covering Dagger first and then swapping to Cloak afterwards. You'll see what I mean as we progress. They both share the same base HP of 250. Also, they don't heal when you swap or anything like that. They have the same health pool 100% of the time. Dagger's primary fire is called the Light Force Dagger, and it's a fast-firing dagger made of pure light that damages enemies for 15 damage and heals allies for 16 HP. Additionally, there's an 8-meter spherical radius AoE around any one hit, including enemies, that heals for 16 HP as well, meaning that an ally hit directly by the dagger will heal 32 HP. There's a small crosshair box around an ally or enemy within range that the dagger will instantly travel to. It has an ammo capacity of 12. Also, to clarify, the AoE only heals allies, not enemies. It just also procs if you hit enemies. Her alternate fire is called Dagger Storm, and it's a bubble of pure healing light that covers a 5-meter spherical radius. Any ally, including herself, that stands in the bubble for the 6-second duration is healed 55 HP per second. This can make Dagger and her team incredibly hard to kill. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Her next ability is called Veil of Light Force, and it's a light screen projectile that travels up to 25 meters, and any ally it touches gains 45 HP, but also receives a 15% boost to all incoming healing for 4 seconds. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Next is Shadow's Embrace, which transforms her into Cloak. Alternatively, Cloak has Light's Embrace, which turns him into Dagger. This ability has no cooldown. Cloak's primary fire is called Dark Force Cloak. It's a continuous beam that targets the closest enemy to the crosshair. Whoever is targeted takes 75 damage per second. It has a max range of 20 meters and no ammo capacity or resource bar. His alt fire is also their primary movement ability, and one of the most clutch support abilities in the entire game, I would say. Out of the ones that are on a cooldown, to specify, not including ultimates. It's called Dark Teleportation, and Cloak wraps himself and his allies within a 10-meter spherical radius in his cloak, making everyone intangible for 2 seconds, unless they use an ability or attack. Additionally, all allies gain a brief 20% speed boost. While in the Dark Force, Cloak can fly, of which doing so extends the timer slightly to 2.2 seconds. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. His next ability is called Terror Cape, and it functions almost identically to Veil of Light Force, except for one key difference. Light Screen is a support tool, and Cape is a DPS tool. Upon making impact with an enemy, it deals 55 damage and applies 2 status effects. The first is a near sight effect that lasts for 1.5 seconds and obscures the vision beyond 10 meters. The second, though, is the real kicker, and lasts for a total of 4 seconds. It's a vulnerability effect. Once applied, an enemy takes 28% more damage from all sources. That might not seem like a lot, but when paired with damage boosts or an already high DPS hero like Squirrel Girl or Magic, it's truly insane. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Last but not least is their ultimate ability, Eternal Bond. Both Cloak and Dagger appear and perform 4 rapid dashes, leaving a trail behind. The trails heal allies 250 HP per second and do 30 damage per second to enemies. Each trail lasts for 8 seconds, and the timer starts as soon as the next dash is made. It's worth noting that the trails do not stack anymore, so you cannot get insane numbers of healing. Each dash is a 4-meter cylindrical radius in width and 15 meters long. It costs 4,000 energy. The days when it was nearly half that. Ah well, the game's the game. And Cloak and Dagger were in a pretty unbalanced state, and they're still pretty damn strong. They're one of the most flexible supports in the entire game, able to effectively sustain themselves, their allies, and their support partner. Their ultimate is incredibly strong and versatile. It's probably the only big heal ult I think is actually fairly unique because of its several trails as opposed to one big AoE like all the others. I think overall they're just incredibly well designed. Obviously they have their flaws, but I think they more than make up for it with the dynamic playstyle they inspire. My advice for them is not really all that complex, but it might seem easier said than done at some points, but here we go. Learn when to be Dagger and when to be Cloak, and always look up in the air. You're one of the 2 healers in the game who can effectively heal flying heroes due to not being required to aim. And on that wavelength, you will also be an effective counter to flying heroes and divers due to that same reason. Bubble is a valuable tool for group healing and also an incredible self-sustain tool if you're being targeted, which you will be. That's all I can think of that would be important for a beginner level player to know. Anything else you can figure out on your own. Invisible Woman is a pretty weird character for me personally. I feel like she doesn't really synergize well together with any of her abilities, and they just kind of threw a bunch of stuff in her kit and just called it a day. She's my least favorite strategist, just due to how disjointed and odd she feels. She feels like she does too much, but not enough of it well, which is like wrong, and I know that. Like obviously she's very good. I don't know, I just would rather play literally any other support besides her. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I know I'm in the minority here, and I know she's, like, very strong and very fun to play for some people. I've never gotten it. I've never understood it. Moving on, though, her base HP is 275. Her primary fire is called Orb Projection, and it's a fast-moving projectile that has a range of 30 meters. Once the projectiles reach their maximum range, they return to Invisible Woman. The projectiles deal 20 damage to enemies forward and backwards, and 30 healing to allies forward and backwards. They also pierce enemies. She has an ammo capacity of 10. Her secondary fire is called Guardian Shield, and it's a small barrier that she projects in front of an ally. Any ally standing behind the shield in a 3-meter radius heals 50 HP per second. Any enemy in that AoE is slowed by 30% until they leave the effect, and then for an additional 3 seconds after leaving. The shield has 300 HP and she can move it at will. Once it's destroyed, it has a cooldown of 6 seconds. Psionic Vortex is another ability she has. She throws out an orb that expands into a 5-meter spherical radius bubble. For the duration, which is 4 seconds, any enemy in the radius takes 35 damage per second and is slowed. It slows them more based on their proximity to the center, up to 50%. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Her next ability is called Force Physics, and it's one of the most versatile displacement abilities in the entire game. Upon inputting the button, a prompt will appear, primary fire to push and secondary fire to pull. Once you confirm the prompt, you do an immediate 55 damage and either push an enemy 12 meters away or pull them 7 meters in. The tunnel is 30 meters long and has a radius of 1.5 meters in width. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Susan has 2 passive abilities. The first is called Veiled Step, which is a double jump, and on the second jump it propels you into the invisible state. And speaking of that, her second passive is called Covert Advance. She can turn invisible after a brief duration of absence from combat. While invisible, she heals 20 HP per second, and if she performs an action or gets damaged, it ends. But otherwise, it's indefinite. The cooldown of Veiled Step is 6 seconds, by the way. Her ultimate is called Invisible Boundary. Upon cast, she can place a cylindrical force field on the ground. It has a 10-meter radius width and is 40 meters tall. Any allies in the force field becomes invisible from the outside and heals 165 HP per second. Any enemies in the field are also invisible, but have delayed after images for their team. Additionally, they are slowed by 55%. This ability lasts for 8 seconds and costs 4,300 energy. My best advice for Invisible Woman is a couple things. The first is you're going to have to rely on your support partner a lot of the time, because Sue has no self-sustain outside of her invisibility, which she has to leave combat in order to use, or her ultimate. Another thing to note is that you should probably be playing in the middle of your team and close to whoever's your front line, but still behind them, so that way you can get the most value from her bouncing projectiles. You throw at your teammate and let it pass through enemies. You know, pretty self-explanatory. Last but not least is one of my other favorite strategists, Mantis. She is one of the brawliest supports in the game outside of Cloak and Dagger. The two of them together make for an absolutely deadly combo, while also being nearly unkillable if you play them right. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about. Not yet, at least. Her base HP is 275, and her primary fire is called Life Energy Blast, and it's a fast-moving and fast-firing projectile that does 50 damage per shot. It has an ammo capacity of 20. Additionally, every critical hit she achieves grants her a new Life Orb. Well, what the hell is a Life Orb? That's her main resource. There's one in every roll and brawl. You know, Thor, Mr. Fantastic, Mantis. Everyone's got them. Her passive, Nature's Favor, has a few effects. First of all, there's the primary effect of her Life Orbs, of which she has 4 of, and they normally have a 3-second refresh rate or cooldown. Also, outside of combat, if she has full HP, she gets a speed boost, making her movement speed 7.5 meters per second. Finally, whenever she consumes a Life Orb, she heals 12.5 HP per second for 8 seconds. Pretty busy ability, I know, but Mantis kind of has a lot going on. Her secondary fire is called Healing Flower, and it consumes 1 Life Orb. She throws a healing burst out that does an initial 55 healing, and then over the next 8 seconds, heals the ally 20 HP per second. The duration does not stack. Recasting on the ally instead refreshes the duration. Additionally, she has a damage boost she can apply to an ally. It's called Allied Inspiration, and through consuming 1 Life Orb, the targeted ally gains a 12% damage boost for the 8-second duration. Much like Healing Flower, it does not stack and instead refreshes. She can also cast that on herself with the Natural Anger ability, which costs 1 Life Orb and has the exact same effects as it does on an ally. Spore Slumber is her main anti-dive ability. She throws out a sleeper grenade effectively, and it kind of explodes in a 3.5 meter radius, putting 1 enemy in the radius to sleep. It also does 10 impact damage, but that's barely relevant. By the sleeping hero, an illusion of Mantis will appear with 100 HP. If the illusion is destroyed, the sleep effect ends early, as well as if they take damage from Mantis or one of her allies. The sleep will last 3.5 seconds normally, though. This ability is not tied to Life Orbs and instead has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Her ultimate ability is called Soul Resurgence. Upon activation, Mantis is surrounded in a 15-meter spherical radius aura of healing. Once cast, there is an initial burst of 200 healing, and then for the rest of the duration, which is 8 seconds, allies in the AoE heal 150 HP per second. On top of that, every ally gains a 30% movement speed boost, and if an ally is full health, 70% of the healing is instead converted to bonus health. While in this state, Mantis can still attack and use her abilities, unlike Luna. It costs 3,700 energy. Mantis is one of the most aggressive supports in the game. She is designed to be playing as aggressively as possible and in the action with her team as much as she can be, especially due to her reliance on critical hits in order to restore Life Orbs faster. She is not a primary support due to her low healing output. She works very well as an off support though. Damage boost should be constantly activated on both herself and an ally if she has the Life Orbs to do so. Her ult is not an I win button like other mass heal ults. She can still be burst down through it and so can your team, so use it more as a pushing tool than defensively, although it still definitely does have some value as a defensive ult. This has now taken the top spot for my longest video. As I said in the beginning, I'm an avid enjoyer of brawl comps, so maybe I came into this one a little more biased than normal, and with a bit more knowledge to share. I certainly feel like I did, at least. Also, like I said at the beginning of the video, feel free to leave any questions in the comments section. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Please try to keep it civil down there too. I know the internet is an awful hellscape, please don't add to it. We need more people to be genuinely valuable human beings. Also, as I've been saying rigorously, I'm not the definitive expert on this game. I'm not the Marvel Rivals guy. So if there's any placements here you don't agree with, feel free to let me know. Civilly again, please, I don't tolerate dickheads. Also, I'm sorry that this was such a fucking mess. I was cramming to get this one done because I had been procrastinating and I wanted this one released by today. So, you know, that's my fault. Oops. Lastly, as is normal, like if you liked, dislike if you didn't. I don't really care one way or the other. And if you found this video informative and want to see more content like this, subscribe too. Again, up to you. I will still be making these videos, and I will still be here doing what I do no matter what, even if nobody ever watches them. Next week, we're going to be breaking the formula and covering team-up abilities, but I think that's a wrap, though. So, yeah, class dismissed, I think, yeah.